Hey, what's up guys? Brent Duncan here with a quick review of the SLR Magic Anamorphot Cine 35mm 2x Anamorphic Prime Lens. That's a mouthful. So what is it? It's a true anamorphic Cine Prime Lens, something I think many indie cinematographers out there have been dreaming of. A genuine, easy to use, legit anamorphic lens that is, say it with me, affordable. That's the key here. Because sure, you can run out and get yourself an Ingenue or Cooke anamorphic lens for $40,000 to $65,000, but who has that? No indie filmmaker has 40 grand to drop on a lens, and if you do, then why haven't you started your own major studio already? For the rest of us, who've had to make do with either no anamorphic lenses in our work, or maybe getting by on effects filters or even visual effects filters to try and mimic the anamorphic look, or maybe those of us who've been forced to use makeshift pseudo-anamorphic lens kits using various adapters, clamps, and old projector lenses, this is the lens set we've been waiting for. Now, SLR Magic has been around for a few years, and they saw a market for anamorphic adapters, lenses and rangefinders that you could attach to the front of a taking lens that would allow you to capture anamorphic footage on your digital cinema camera or DSLR. Somewhere along the way, a light bulb went off and someone in the company said, hey, why don't we just make our own anamorphic lenses? And last fall, the Anamorphot Cine Primes were announced. They come in two flavors, a Micro Four Thirds mount, which is a 2x anamorphic squeeze, which works best on cameras with a 4/3 sensor or a 4/3 sensor crop, but can still be used on any camera with a Micro Four Thirds mount. The other version is a PL mount with a 1.33x anamorphic squeeze, which is designed specifically for 16:9 sensor cameras. Both sets come in 35, 50, and 70mm sizes, and you can buy them separately or all together in a kit. The Micro Four Third mount lenses range from $2,600 to $3,100 US, or $8,500 for the entire kit of all three lenses. The PL mount lenses range from $6,000 to $6,500, again in US, or $18,700 for the whole kit. They have only been in the wild for a few months now, and information on them is so hard to come by that some people don't even believe that they exist, which is why I agreed to do this interview. They're phenomenal lenses, and I think everyone should know they're out there, and even some rental houses have them available, so you can check them out. Full disclaimer here, I am not in any way associated with SLR Magic, and currently only own the 35mm 2x Anamorphot lens, as it was all I could afford. Eventually I hope to have them all because this one is simply an amazing piece of glass and I can't say enough good things about it. So let's start off with, what do you get when you buy one of these lenses? SLR Magic has had custom cases and foam inserts made for each of the lenses in this line. This is the case that comes with the lens. It is very similar in size to a Pelican 1300 case. However, when you feel it, you'll notice right away that the plastic of the case feels very thin and cheap when compared to any Pelican case. A hard drop onto a surface, an accidental kick, or even being out in very cold temperatures could easily cause the case to crack, which would put your lens at risk of being damaged. I chose to pick up a Pelican 1300 case with the pluck foam insert and use that for my lens. It's an extra $50, but it's worth it. Now you might be wondering why I didn't just use the custom foam insert that comes with the original lens case. It's because the original lens case was slightly wider than the Pelican 1300 case, which caused the original foam to be squished a bit when put into the Pelican case. So I just chose to use the pluck foam instead. As for my setup, here's my camera, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. And here's my rig with the SLR Magic Anamorphot Cine Lens. It's a beast. The whole rig as you see here weighs about 13 pounds. The purpose of this video review is to maybe help answer some questions some of you have about the lenses. One of the most common questions I've been asked about is, can you use a matte box? And another one is, can you use a follow focus with it? The answer to both is yes. However, with the matte box, there are some things to note, namely that you need to make sure that your matte box is wide enough to fit the lens. It has an 82mm front filter thread, so it's on the wider end of things. Also, the lens breathes quite a bit, and I'll get to that more in a moment. But because of that, you want to make sure that if you're using any filters in your matte box, you allow the lens to breathe if you're pulling focus during the shot. Here you can see just how much the lens breathes. It's a lot, so just be aware of that. As far as using a follow focus on this, it's super smooth to pull focus with. However, there's a huge amount of rotation on the lens, and whether it's you pulling focus or if you have an AC doing it, they're going to need some practice getting used to it. Whips or cranks can help go a little faster and smoother, or you can just get in there with your hand and go for it. Just be aware of how much rotation on this lens is, because it's no joke. It will seriously take some time to go all the way from 3.5 feet to infinity in one focus pull. Some people have asked me about using a monitor and what sort of monitoring solutions are out there, or what do I use. I use a small HD DP7 Pro OLED monitor. It's an amazing monitor, but it's also amazingly expensive. The reason I chose this one was due to its ability to do an anamorphic D-squeeze, as well as the false color waveforms and LUT capabilities. Now with the anamorphic D-squeeze, you can actually see exactly what the image will look like when it's stretched back out in post. This is invaluable for framing up your shot. Now, if you don't have a monitor, or your monitor can't do a D-squeeze, this is how it's going to look. Everything will be squished in on the sides, making the image appear vertically stretched. Now this isn't a huge issue. It can take some time to get used to in terms of framing things up and focusing, but I actually find it easier to focus when it's all squished in like this, because all those pixels are being squeezed together, packing in so much detail that it allows you to more easily see what's sharp and what's not. Especially when you're in a more run and gun situation where you haven't had time to properly measure from your camera's film plane to your subject. Once you're focused, go back to the anamorphic D-squeeze, and then you can properly frame it up and know exactly how it will look. Let's talk about cropping and crop sensors. Here we have our shot completely de-squeezed with no cropping or reframing, and it's insanely wide. Now again, this is the 35mm prime anamorphic lens, and it's on the Blackmagic Pocket, where there's a 2.88 times crop factor. So this is the field of view equivalent of a 100mm lens. So you can imagine, if you were using this on a 4/3 full frame sensor, just how unbelievably wide this image would be. It would be crazy wide. Crazy but beautiful. You end up with something like a 355:1 aspect ratio, which is far wider than most people care to use. That's not to say you can't use it at this ratio. It could make for some seriously gorgeous landscapes. I mean, you can imagine filming in the mountains or on a hilltop overlooking a forest, or even a really huge city being shown in one locked off shot that's not, say, 20 miles away. But for most cinema, you're going to want to be at 240:1, or maybe if you want to go ultra wide at 276:1, which would be Ultra Panavision 70mm like Tarantino did for The Hateful Eight. But for most projects, a 235:1 aspect ratio is what people consider to be cinematic. This will give you a very cinematic look to your film, and people just seem to love it. Now, some people are purists, and they'll raise holy hell about cropping into your image and, losing any pixels, or, cropping in to get any aspect ratio other than the original is captured by the lens. But the beautiful thing about filming anamorphic is that because you're cramming in twice the horizontal pixel information, you can crop into, say, 235:1, as we have here, and you're still gaining 52% more pixels than if you had simply used a regular lens. It really gives you so many more options in post. So what about bokeh? Right now, as you can see here, we are properly framed up. We are exposed at T2.8, which I should also quickly mention that if you wanted to do a T-stop change during a shot, it's buttery smooth, so you definitely could. I've measured my focusing distance at 6.5 feet, and we're all focused in. Now, once again, pulling focus on this, so smooth, so easy. It's just a dream to work with this lens. Now, as I pull focus to a closer focal point, you can really see that gorgeous oval bokeh happening to the fairy lights in the background. This is one of those wonderful characteristics of anamorphic lenses, and it's one of the things that people subconsciously associate with cinema. It screams true film, and it screams cinema. Conversely, if I pull focus towards the fairy lights, our gnome subject here does that gorgeous slight horizontal stretch as he defocuses, which is another characteristic of anamorphic lenses. And if I go out even further towards infinity, you can see his bokeh really shine, and he just looks great. Now, I've heard some people say that this is just the SLR Magic 2x Anamorphot adapter and rangefinder combined with one of their cine lenses, but these lenses are so much more than that. They're true anamorphic lenses at an incredible price. Last but not least, I want to talk about flares. Here you can see as the xenon lamp flashlight is being aimed towards the lens, we get some lovely blue flaring happening. Now the flaring seems to take the color of whatever the light source is for these lenses, as I've had blue, yellow, and purple flares at various times. Another thing I love about these lenses is that the flaring isn't too much or too little. It seems like SLR Magic took their time and made just the right amount of flaring for these lenses, so that you still get that gorgeous anamorphic flare, but not J.J. Abrams level flares. That's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave any questions or comments below. Thanks.